Friends, thank you for watching my channel. I just want to remind you, if you need wallpaper, go to www.wallpaperboulevard.com. Tell them Spencer sent you. In fact, if you use my hashtag, Spencer Colgan is wallpaper, they'll be sure to give you 10% off at your checkout. No matter how much you order, they have a wide selection of wallpaper. Check it out. Tell them I said hello. Moisture, wallpaper, like oil and vinegar, they don't match. If you ever had problems with your wallpaper bubbling up, usually it's simply because either one, the wall covering didn't expand enough, or you didn't book the wallpaper enough on your table. Just see the directions for that. But let me show you something on this wall. What I mean by that is the following. There are generally three sources from which bubbles come. Number one, if you apply paste to the back of your wall covering and you don't allow it to soak or book with the glued ends touching each other for at least 3 to 5 minutes, or according to manufacturing guidelines, then you will get bubbles, because the material on the back of your wall covering has not sufficiently saturated, and it will suck the moisture out of the paste, and you will get a bubble as a result. The second source from which bubbles come is what appears to be buckles of air pockets on your wall covering. And so if you don't leave your wall covering soaking enough, what will happen is that it will expand on the wall instead of on your table. And so two types of bubbles result from not booking or soaking your wall covering. The third source from which wall covering comes are paste bubbles. And these are those annoying little bubbles at the end. When you're wiping down your wall covering, you see little bubbles no bigger than the size of your thumbnail, and you push them out and they appear a couple of inches away. The air just keeps finding a place to reside. Those are the most benign, and those are the ones you can leave because they will come out on their own. They are the only ones that'll come out on their own, the paste bubbles. The other bubbles are severely problematic and are the result of inexperience or failure to understand or read the directions. The last type of bubble is a fourth bubble, which is a hybrid type. I know I said three because in general there are three. However, if through no fault of your own as the hanger, there is moisture in the wall, what will happen is that the moisture releases air, and that air could find its way trapped under your wall covering after you either prime it or come to hang your wallpaper and it has been recently painted and the wall has not cured yet, or simply you have what's called a wet wall. Unbeknownst to the homeowner, you have moisture infiltrating the structure, and this happens in a lot of commercial restaurants, believe it or not, where the outside wall is unprotected from the rain, and the wall finds itself being a victim of penetration through one place or another, and you have moisture. And the wall is constantly wet and constantly drying. Consequently, you have a constant threat at least during the curing process of your wallpaper, a constant threat of air trying to penetrate, trying to make its way out of the wall, but getting trapped under your wallpaper. And this video will address the hybrid, what I call the hybrid bubble, which is a result of air escaping from a wet wall. Let's have a look. This is a Klein tool. It's a moisture eater. So typically around walls with windows, right around the window, you'll get higher readings, right? Sometimes so high that you don't get a number. And some wall coverings come with the proviso, not recommended for moisture readings over 5%. The reason I do this video is because if you have bubbles that are otherwise inexplicable, you booked it sufficiently, you gave it enough time, you used the right paste, you might be experiencing bubbles from moisture. Moisture levels that are so high that the air escaping from the moisture caused lingering bubbles that caused air to escape and get trapped underneath your wallpaper. You see, if you have air escaping out of moisture on a typical wall where it goes back down because nothing dried out and the wallpaper simply goes into place. But if you have excessive moisture, that is excessive air escaping from the substrate, think about a balloon that you don't pop. It's just there, and it's preventing the wall covering from going back onto the wall. When that happens, even if your moisture goes back down to a safe level, your wallpaper paste has dried and doesn't have the ability to adhere itself simply because the paste is no longer wet. So a bubble creates pressure. The pressure makes a cyst on the wall covering, or a blister that where the air can't escape. And so once the moisture dissipates and your wall covering is left in a position of a blister, if everything else has dried around it, the blister will not go back down by itself. And this is caused by high moisture or excessive moisture. I hope I'm making myself clear. If your wall is flat before you hang your wall covering, and then you have air pockets that don't go down quickly enough, and I don't know what that time is, but it would have to go down while the paste is still moist enough to receive the paper and pull it back onto the wall. Well, then you have an air pocket that needs to be penetrated with a knife and rolled with a hard roller. Let me show you the roller. So if we look for an air pocket, if you gently penetrate the air pocket, now you fill that with moisture so that the water gets underneath the wall covering that's penetrated, so it doesn't damage it, and then it makes the paper swell. That's the idea of putting water near the place where you put the cut. You get a hard roller, it's a wooden roller, and that will enable you to push out the air without damaging touching the wall covering. And the incision just becomes an imperceptible seam, so to speak. With this, I have a microfiber cloth. You can see the air moving under there, right? See that? Let me wipe it down. Perfect. Now, if you want to, now this wall covering happens to be quality wallpaper. So let's say your wall covering were flimsy and susceptible to damage just by handling it. Well, I wouldn't use the wooden one, I would use the neoprene roller. It's softer, but in any case, even with high quality wall covering, if you want to protect the wallpaper extra, you can simply roll the seam roller over a nice soft cushion. It's hard to determine what in fact is causing the bump. It might be that you didn't sift your paste. If you don't sift your paste, you could have junk in the paste. You know what I mean, dried paste. But if you've ruled all of that out, you may want to check your moisture reading. So, just like when we wait for wall covering, for the paste bubbles to dissipate, as long as you penetrate that, get the air out, the rest should now come down. You don't want to overdo the procedure, because you could wind up with cheap wallpaper. We'd already have discoloration, you know? So you don't want to overwork it. But that's how to identify your bubbles and what to do if you get them. I strongly advise you to get a hard, not a metal one, but a wooden seam roller, which also are used for dry paste bubbles. Okay. Tell me what you do with any bubbles that are dry when you have to come back to a job. Thanks for watching. Please comment.